I've got the propaganda of the day, the most bet on props coming over from BetMGM for Monday Night Football, the last game of the wildcard round. Let's see if you're on the same side of the public or not. This is propaganda. You are not going to like this. The most bet on prop of the night. Joseph Rodriguez, I am sorry. I'm about to ruin your night. Nico Collins is the most bet on player to score a touchdown tonight. Houston's receiver has scored in one of his last 4 games. Nico Collins over 68.5 receiving yards is getting 99% of money. So with Kenneth Gainwell over receiving yards. Aaron Rodgers under longest pass completion. Christian Kirk under receiving yards. Johnny Smith over receptions. MVS over receptions. And Connor Hayward over 1.5 rushing yards. That's hilarious. Those are your most bet on props of the day, according to BetMGM for Steelers, Texans. Everyone in the world is going to be on Nico Collins. My advice would be a Nico Collins over longest reception if you want to bet them. Do I agree with his props? Well, these aren't his props. These are John Ewing's most bet on props at MGM. If you would like to fade the public, then you bet the other side. If you think the public's right, then go with them. But the only way then, if Nico Collins to score a touchdown and Nico Collins over 68.5 receiving yards are 2 of the most bet on props of the day, then the only over I would play on Nico Collins is his longest reception. I do think a lot of people are buying into Kenneth Gainwell. Again, if you would like to zig when everyone zags, you could go with Jaylen instead. Aaron Rodgers, no one thinks he could throw the ball far, but that number's booked at 32.5 for a reason. DK Metcalf, yards after catch. Be careful. Be careful there. The rest, I don't really care. MVS probably gets 1 catch. Do I have NBA propaganda? Do we like Schultz? Jose, I'll bring up Schultz. He's in Prop Queen Edges of the day. You'll hear about it. John Ewing. Let's see if he's got NBA. Oh, yeah, he just posted it an hour ago. There we go. I don't have much of an opinion on these because I didn't do NBA today. But I'll show you them just so that you can have it for reference. The NBA most bet on props of the night. Sam Merrill over points. Joel Embiid over points and assists. Brandon Ingram under 1.5 threes. Danny Wolf under rebounds. And Johnny Murphy over total points and rebounds are your most bet on props of the day over at BetMGM for tonight's NBA slate. And just in case you do care, even though we're more of a prop show, the most bet on teams to cover tonight in the NBA are the Celtics, the Jazz, and the Raptors. Just keep those in mind. I've got the prop queen edges of the day. Hold on. Okay. I had to get rid of someone. Prop queen edges of the day. We'll start with the away team, the Houston Texans. CJ Stroud over passing yards tonight stood out. I really like the matchup for Stroud. He's facing this Pittsburgh defense that has been allowing the 3rd most passing yards per game. 76% of quarterbacks have gone over their passing yards prop against Pittsburgh this year. Stroud's averaging 244 passing yards a game when up against teams that are bottom 10 against the pass. And on the road, he's averaging actually 260. He's averaging just over 19 passing yards more per game on the road this year because he's throwing the ball a lot more on the road. He's gone over in 4 of 7 road games, his pass attempts and his pass attempts prop. He's actually averaging 7 more pass attempts per game on the road as well this year. I was looking at the pass attempts for Stroud, but the numbers aren't numbering. Overall, he's averaging 30 pass attempts a game against teams bottom 10 in pass attempts allowed. It does go up on the road, though, to 35. He throws more on the road, CJ Stroud. Pittsburgh's allowing the 4th most pass attempts per game. 65% of quarterbacks went over their pass attempt prop against Pittsburgh. The only thing you have to worry about with CJ Stroud would be if they have such a lead. If you feel like the Texans are going to blow him out, then he's going to stop throwing. Otherwise, if you think this game's somewhat close, that the Steelers put up somewhat of a fight and CJ Stroud has to keep his foot on the gas, the pass attempts, according to the numbers, are there. 35 on the road against teams bottom 10 in pass attempts allowed. So you could look to CJ Stroud. I'm going to fade CJ Stroud, though, in the ground game. I wouldn't be betting this. I'm not betting an under either, but I'm just staying away. He's actually gone under 12.5 rushing yards in 7 straight games. He hasn't been running much since the concussion. I forgot to tweet out that we're doing prop clean edges. He hasn't been running much since the concussion, obviously. Clean edges in Monday Night Playoff Football now. Maybe he does now because it's the playoffs. Maybe he runs more now because it's the playoffs and he's like, ooh, like win or go home. I'm staying away from the ground game because until I see that CJ Stroud's going to run again, I'm done. But Pittsburgh has allowed the 9th least rushing yards per game to quarterbacks. 60% of quarterbacks in the last 10 games went under their rushing yard prop when facing the Steelers. But on the flip side of that, against teams that are even top 10 in rushing, like in teams that are really good against, like in containing mobile quarterbacks, CJ Stroud's still averaging 15 rushing yards a game. So the number is off at 12.5. It's just of late since the concussion, he's not running. So it makes sense for the numbers of late. But if CJ Stroud is CJ Stroud, this wouldn't be an under. But I'm just staying away because he just hasn't been running the football as much. Both the tight ends, Dalton Schultz, Cade Stover, great matchup for tight ends. Houston, this season, has allowed the 7th most receiving yards per game to tight ends. Dalton Schultz, I absolutely love this man. I am pretty sure in his wild card, in the wild card last year, I'm pretty sure I hit his over in the first game. Pretty sure. I tend to go over on Dalton Schultz receiving yards or longest reception. This number was just a little too, it was spot on the longest reception number, but the receiving yards number was pretty off. Against teams bottom 10 against tight ends this year, Dalton Schultz is averaging 67 receiving yards a game. I mean, I don't want to bore you with the stats, but the Colts, 55 and 73. Arizona, 76 receiving yards. Seattle, 98 receiving yards. Denver, 77 receiving yards. The Jags, 39, but then he faced the Jags again and had 53. So, he has been crushing this number of 43.5 when facing teams bottom 10 against tight ends. It's just the question of, why have the Texans been so good the last month against tight ends? Who have they faced? Dalton Schultz is a really good veteran tight end that can have a lot of success against this Houston D. Even on the road against teams bottom 10 against tight ends, 64 receiving yards a game. So I'm going to go with the over on the receiving yards for Dalton Schultz. If you would like a lower number to bet on a player that maybe I was looking, can 2 tight ends go over? And in fact, they can, because there have been 5 games this year where Pittsburgh allowed at least 2 tight ends to go over their receiving yards prop. 61% of tight ends have gone over their receiving yard prop this year against the Steelers. 63% of tight ends went over their longest reception against them, 57% over receptions, but I like receiving yards. This year, Cade Stover is averaging 16 receiving yards through 3 games when facing teams that are bottom 10 against tight ends. He's gone over 6.5 yards for his longest reception in all 3 games. So maybe you do over 6.5 yards for a longest reception for Cade Stover because he probably is going to have 1 good catch, realistically. I like Schultz over the most. He's like compared to Tyler Higbee of the Rams game. We had Tyler Higbee over his longest reception, and that cashed in the first half of the Rams-Panthers game. We go with the vets in the first round of the playoffs. And that, for CJ Stroud, is the reliable Dalton Schultz when Nico Collins is getting every freaking defender on him. Dalton Schultz is going to be the one. Everyone's on Nico Collins tonight. Dalton Schultz for me. That's my player to watch. The Pittsburgh prop queen edges of the night, the home team. Yes, I'm going to back somewhat of the public with the Aaron Rodgers unders, but not on the longest completion. I actually like his under passing yards the most. Under completions was intriguing, but because it went up from 20.5 to 21.5, I don't like it. The passing has been about the same, 204.5. He's gone under 204.5 against top 10 pass Ds in all but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's faced 6 top 10 pass defenses and went under in 5 of those 6. Aaron Rodgers is averaging 184 passing yards per game at home in those matchups against teams with a top 10 pass D. Houston has allowed the 6th least passing yards per game, 204, right on the dot. 59% of quarterbacks have gone under their passing yards prop this year against Houston. Aaron Rodgers under a lot of pressure tonight. Take the under on his passing yards if you want to take a Rodgers prop. As for the running back, Jaylen Warren, I like a lot of his unders as well. If the Steelers are playing from behind, they're going to have to try to throw the football. Can't run too much clock. But Jaylen Warren, rush attempts was pretty spot on. But the rushing yards, I saw it at 52.5. He's averaging 46 rushing yards a game against the top 10 run D. His longest rush, he's averaging 10 yards per longest rush. His prop was 12.5. So my numbers were a little bit below where the prop market is. Warren's averaging 48 rushing yards a game at home. He's gone under actually in 5 of 8 home games. For reference, he's averaging 71 rushing yards per game on the road. So they are utilizing Jaylen Warren a lot more on the road rushing-wise. 63% of running backs went under their rushing yards prop against Houston this year. 68% of running backs went under their longest rush prop this year against Houston. So look to Jaylen Warren unders as well. Pittsburgh tight end Pat Freiermuth. We made money on his over last week, and we are going to fade him this week. The number dropped. You heard it earlier on the show with Jared Block. I said I am freaking pissed because I am a hypocrite who told everybody when they got the Prop Queen guide at the PropQueen.com newsletter this week, all of the premium subscribers, I said, go bet these props before they move. And I did bet a few. But the Monday Night Football game, I said, I'm going to kind of see how the market moves. Pat Freiermuth went from 35.5 to 31.5. I am pissed. Did I bet 31.5 under? Yes, I did, because I think he has about 20 receiving yards today. However, we're going to go under on the receiving yards because against teams top 10 against tight ends, Pat Freiermuth is averaging 18 receiving yards a game, 14.5 yards per longest reception, and just about 2 catches. Houston has the 7th least. They've allowed the 7th least receiving yards per game to tight ends. 56% of tight ends went under their receiving yard and longest reception prop. 61% of tight ends went under their reception prop against Houston. 3.5, the under's minus 130 now, so it did move a bit in our favor. DK Metcalf's back, so don't be surprised if a lot of the targets end up going to DK. Pat Freiermuth had a nice week last week, but the number 1 wide receiver is back for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Valdez-Scantling 2 TD as well. Is Adam Thielen a fade with DK back? Can't decide because Rodgers lost one of his security blankets in Washington. Depends on the number. Fade in receiving yards, fade in receptions. Which market are you trying to fade with Adam Thielen? Let's take a look. Because obviously Adam Thielen the last 3 weeks, 49, 14, and 43 receiving yards. So been really good. Receptions, 4, 2, and 3. Receiving yard long, 17, 11, and 28. I wouldn't say he's a fade. Like I wouldn't be betting an under. Maybe you go over longest reception. No, over longest reception. Because here's my thought process with receiving yards and longest reception. Receiving yards are obviously most of the time higher. So you need more quantity, most likely 2 to 3 catches for Adam Thielen. If you're worried about Adam Thielen not getting the number of receptions, when you look at Adam Thielen in the last 3 weeks, he's had a 28, 11, and 17-yard catch. And on 3, 2, and 4 catches. So if you feel like there is a chance that DK Metcalf is going to take away from Adam Thielen, then maybe there is one catch that Thielen becomes available in wide open space. And he's like, this number is very low for a longest reception prop at 10.5. I mean, like you said, that's a first down. So if you could get a good longest reception prop number, then that could be a way to potentially play Adam Thielen with DK back. So I'm also very biased towards longest reception props. I hate betting receiving yards overs for wide receivers. your handicap could be spot on and you could just pick the wrong wide receiver. That's the worst part about receiving yard props for wide receivers. At least tight ends, there's a method to the madness. Teams are bad against tight ends, probably means that they're weak at the linebacker position, and that's going to lead to a tight end having success in the middle of the field. When it comes to wide receivers, again, yeah, every wide receiver is a little bit different, but you could have a similar handicap for two different receivers in the post, and someone's going to go off for the big game, and you pick the wrong receiver. So that's always my issue with wide receiver props. But if you do like a wide receiver, I only really will bet longest reception because there is a way to quantify a player that is really good in catching a deep ball or yards after the catch against teams that are bad against wide receivers, bad secondaries. Usually there's going to be some kind of blown coverage at some point. And if you believe that to be the theory and you don't know which wide receiver to choose, then choose the receiver that you feel their longest reception prop's too low and they potentially have the chance to expose some kind of defensive gap that they can go over on a longest reception. So, yeah. Longest reception props for me on wide receivers. My best bets of the day. And I have a PrizePicks lineup. Royal Locks. If you're paying attention to where I'm going and how excited I get over certain plays, then you will know exactly what my Royal Locks are. This is the PrizePicks lineup. Usually I do $250 to make $750. Today I just played it a little conservative. It's the playoffs, and we'll see. I also got iffy numbers, so I wanted to make sure. Got a pretty good number, actually, on Dalton Schultz. It's 43.5 in other spots. So 41.5 more than receiving yards for Dalton Schultz. Less than 32.5 receiving yards for Pat Freiermuth. $100 to pay you $300 on this two-legger. So, yes, those are my favorite plays of the day. Also bet them at Pickett, so you can see that over at Pickett, I have these bet individually as well. I don't like to just bet a parlay. I like to bet those sides equally. So even if I go one-on-one, maybe I make a little bit of money. Pat Freiermuth under receiving yards. He's getting a defense top 10 against tight ends. DK Metcalf is back. Freiermuth averaging 18 receiving yards a game against defenses top 10 against tight ends. Dalton Schultz has the playoff experience. He's a veteran, and he's averaging... Now I was trying to do it by memorizing. Schultz is averaging 67 receiving yards a game against teams bottom 10 against tight ends, and that's the Pittsburgh Steelers, who have been allowing some of the most receiving yards per game to tight ends. Fifth most in the league. 61% of tight ends have gone over their receiving yard prop this year against Pittsburgh. So those are my Royal Locks of the night. Shout out to PrizePicks. More than 41.5 receiving yards, less than 32.5 receiving yards. Have you ever thought about charging a commission on your Royal Lops or propaganda? What do you mean? What do you mean charging a commission on them? What do you mean? The newsletter is pretty much the commission, but the newsletter is all for where you could get all of the information. Pretty much if you love all the info I give out and you want that in your inbox, Marley's watching the show. If you want that in your inbox, everything I give out, all the info I say on this show every day for an hour, yes, you have to pay for it. And yes, here on the show, you get it for free. But if you want it and you don't want to have to go through the show and get the summary, then every single stat and all the research I give out is in your inbox at theproplane.com newsletter.